extremely humbled for this opportunity to launch the Web3 Hong Kong Blueprint. Firstly, I want to introduce Web3 Harbour. Now, Web3 Harbour is the region's premier pro-innovation, pro-collaboration Web3 industry association. You may know us over the last, I don't know, year and a half across Hong Kong for various different reasons, but I want to focus on a few notable areas that I'm extremely proud for the association to be part of. First and foremost, last year, we ran a month-long celebration at Hong Kong FinTech Week called Blocktober, and it was an astounding success. We also have done multiple smart contact series every third Thursday of every month. We have an industry leader, industry executive coming to talk to us about all the ongoings and updates from across the world. And lastly, to the core of why Web3 Harbour is so special, we have two subcommittees. One subcommittee focused on enterprise development, basically Hong Kong listed companies and Hong Kong originated companies wanting to build Web3 use cases with the rest of the ecosystem. And the other one is our regulatory and VATP subcommittee, focused on improving the experience of licensees through the process and for incumbents to maximize their license. So, why are we here today? You know, one thing about Web3 Harbour that's so special is the community that we represent. We have over 27 companies, actually, I've just updated, 27 companies that focus on why Web3 should be the key focus of Hong Kong. And that leads us to our key learnings. Our key learnings around how to build the future of finance with Web3 in mind for Hong Kong. What is the blueprint? The blueprint, simply put, is the private sector's commitment to Hong Kong government priorities. And the first of these many priorities announced and launched last year at the Hong Kong FinTech Week is how does Hong Kong become an international financial hub with Web3 in mind? So as we get through that, I do want to talk about how we came up with this process. It does not happen in an echo chamber. It's really important to have consultation, collaboration, and sticking to our pro-collaboration, pro-innovation commitment. The idea was to first connect with the Hong Kong government to understand where the gaps were in terms of moving this to the next generation financial hub. Through that process, we assembled a really rockstar team, and they're sitting here up in the front, of industry experts from our membership. And through this approach, we were able to come up with a first draft of the report, of the blueprint. And so you see here today, we're in the middle of this process. So after, immediately, this discussion, we will open it up for public consultation. And in this, we really need the help from the community to read, to understand, as well as to give feedback to this entire process. And once that happens, we will be able to commit to the government and to the rest of the Web3 ecosystem what's next before we move into the next version of the commitments from the various priorities. Okay. So this concept, which I was speaking to our chairman, Gary Liu, about this. And he had made a very, very astute conversation about having different types of regulation and jurisdictions that regulate differently around the world. So some accept and allow crypto, but what's unique about Hong Kong is the active purpose of integrating crypto with the current financial system in the markets. So this is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity that should not be taken lightly. Now, in terms of why Hong Kong has the right to win and the right to play in this space, just fundamentally at its core, from Hong Kong's pre-existence of really driving innovation with a lot of the crypto infrastructure that we take for granted. Many people obviously know, but some may not. A lot of the infrastructure that we take for granted today has come and originated from Hong Kong. Now, moving forward, because we have this pedigree, and specifically just from the traditional financial sense, $8 trillion of assets under management, over 15,000 organizations and institutions operate here in Hong Kong. And then we are a multilateral trade-focused hub from cross-border activities. We deserve and we have the right to win in the virtual asset space, to create new products, lead in standards, adoption, and regulation, as well as be the super connector from east and west. How do we actually start getting there? And so the Web3 Blueprint is this approach, this framework, and it's right here. There's multiple different sections. We will focus and deep dive into areas between Web3 talent and how we actually take practical steps from the private sector alongside the priorities with the Hong Kong government to make this reality. First and foremost, focusing on the current existing extant structure, which is Cyberport and Science Park. And then really thinking about what other private sector commitments can we actually look at to make sure that this is actually robust and competitive. Next thing is what I call marketecture. You know, it's very funny. We were going through this entire process of talking about, okay, what blockchain infrastructure, what systems, what solutions, and we always kept going to this market infrastructure, market architecture. Marketecture is really what we need. It's this really close, no daylight synergy between what the market and the business needs and what we can actually do with infrastructure and Web3 technology. And so some of the things I really, really want to focus on Web3 architecture is really on the artificial intelligence integration with Web3. Another thing is around the adoption of standards for the movement and transfer of information so that we can have these robust systems in place. Standards. Standards, extremely, extremely important. One of the key areas of standards is really being able to accept global international standards as well as set them. Setting standards is not only important for our presence as an international financial hub, but also for the ability for us to explore and innovate. And this leads to other regulation activities and sandbox activities. Technology contribution commitment to market diversification. One of the areas I think is truly special in this blueprint, as you'll see, is the call to action. The call to action from private sector to participate in private sector-led sandboxes to ideate and test different use cases. Now, use cases often misconstrued with, we need to find a reason to build on Web3. In fact, if you have to find a reason to build on Web3, you're already late to the game. So one thing is creating new opportunities from scratch that not necessarily requires pre-existing infrastructure and processes to be renewed, but looking at new products and services that have been created with people like in the regulatory subcommittee as well as the enterprise subcommittee. Regulation. Regulation has been a hot and important topic for Hong Kong and our existence as an association for quite some time. But I think moving forward, one of the very interesting areas is supervisory technology. So understanding how Hong Kong can be not only a trend center in terms of standards, but also focusing on what it means to be an international financial hub when we're looking at regulatory, reg tech, and supervisory tech. Okay, so with all of these different opportunities in play, how can you contribute? What is the value add, and what is the call to action that we have for the audience today? Very simple. Scan, read, and we will have a form. And this form, again, is open until the end of this quarter. After, we'll publish a final version of this paper in which it will move over to elements of the FSDC so we can start moving towards a policy position. And then we will restart this process for the next commitment over the next 2 to 3 quarters, leading into the next policy address. I'm super excited about this because this allows us to create a backbone of discourse with private and public sector, and then a focus to separate both from a marketing perspective as well as from a policy and a regulatory contribution. I really, really want to thank everybody today for taking the time to come and be part of this. Again, the call to action, please get on, please share with your friends, and people who are not from Hong Kong, please enjoy the city. And as Honorable Paul Chan said, make it the most while you're here today. But before I close out, there's actually something special. You know, this blueprint wasn't built by people who were paid to do this. It was again, a task force assembled of industry experts and industry leaders and subject matter experts in their respective fields with priorities focused on the policy address. So it's very important to understand and thank those individuals for all the contributions they made throughout the entire process. And I wanted to take the opportunity today to also talk about our first commitment that we can immediately address. So one of our members, IDA, you may know them from the stablecoin activities that they are engaged in. They have created the Web3 Future Leaders Program with various different universities here in Hong Kong. And I'm excited to talk about how they've actually connected that with our first commitment. And through this, I hope that there will be more and more commitments from the rest of the private sector and the rest of our membership. So with that said, I wanted to thank the team and have a wonderful consensus. And then also, please, again, take a look at this blueprint, contribute, and give us your feedback, because it's so important to have the public information back to us.